The Pittsburgh Penguins will most likely not make the 2023 NHL playoffs. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now and the National Hockey Now YouTube channel. Uwe Krupp, David Volek, Andreas Athanasiou. Those three names may be now etched in Pittsburgh Penguins history as the guys who scored game-winning goals that broke Penguins and Penguins fans' hearts. Athanasiou scored the third goal on Tuesday night for the Chicago Blackhawks, the hapless, lowly, pathetic Blackhawks, who had lost 11 of their last 12, not even put up much of an effort in a lot of those games, and yet the Pittsburgh Penguins fell 5-2 to Chicago. I don't know what the Penguins, a gift-wrapped opportunity, courtesy of the New York Islanders, who face-planted against the Washington Capitals, the short-handed and tired Washington Capitals on Monday night, and the Penguins returned to sender. Sent that gift right back to the Islanders, so here's the playoff situation. If the Islanders beat the Montreal Canadiens on Wednesday night, or even get a single point, if they get to overtime, it's over. The Penguins' season is effectively over. However, if Montreal happens to beat the Islanders in regulation, then the Penguins will again have a chance to make the playoffs if they can win in any way, shape, or form on Thursday in Columbus. And we will be there. It's not looking good, though. So I don't know where we want to start. I mean, I put out the Q&A on Twitter, as we always do. Follow me at the Dan Kingerski. And within minutes, I had 26 responses, and Twitter didn't even show them all to me. I had to actually go in through an old account. Remember Bud Moonshine? I had to go in through Bud Moonshine and kind of try to reply to see everybody and everything. And there's a lot of the same. You want to know about Mike Sullivan. You want to know about Ron Hextall. You want to know why these Penguins face-planted, failed, why they flatlined. Let me get to a couple points here, because there were two bombshell locker room quotes on Tuesday night. Chris Letang openly admitted, he's like, against good teams, we play well. But against teams maybe that aren't in the playoffs, that have nothing to lose, we don't bring the same demeanor. We don't play a full 60 minutes. That's from Letang. Evgeny Malkin. Here's the money quote of the night from Evgeny Malkin. I think we tried. We tried everything. I try to play so hard every night, but the league is young. A new generation is coming. On Tuesday night, the Penguins put 12 of their 18 players were over 30. And as I've said numerous times, it's not that the Penguins' birth certificates have high numbers on them. That's kind of irrelevant because three of their best players, Crosby, Malkin, Letang, were not the problems, although Letang had a few turnovers on Tuesday. It's not that they have high numbers on their birth certificates. It's that cumulatively, they were old in spirit. They lacked the urgency, the desire, the hunger that a younger team has. Collectively, they were old of spirit. Consequently, they lacked discipline. They lacked that speed. They lacked so many things, which was obvious for months. Check out my column, my post-game column on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. We probably put too much content up. It just got dumped. Like Dave and I were just writing up a storm on Tuesday night. But it was my column. Unacceptable. The Penguins must confront this abject failure and mediocrity. Make no mistake, the winds of mediocrity blew into PPG Paints Arena with the ferocity of a dark storm on Tuesday. The conclusion became inescapable. It was a stark realization that these Penguins couldn't just flip the switch and pull it together when they wanted, because they certainly wanted to on Tuesday night. They just couldn't do some very basic and fundamental things. Just like the loss a couple of weeks ago to the New York Islanders. Look, in, was it 5 of 6 or just 4 or 5 straight games when they were losing a couple of weeks ago, they had 40 or more shots. They had 40 or more shots in 4 straight games, the Penguins' record. And they lost a few of those. The simple and easy answer, Mike Sullivan addressed it tonight in his postgame. He said, I thought we could have done a little bit more to get inside the dots, to break them down a little bit. Chicago, tactically, Chicago collapsed 5 guys. See the dots right behind me there? By the way, like and subscribe to the channel. Like the videos now. Like it. Chicago put 5 guys inside those dots. If I did a report card tonight, which I didn't, you didn't want to read the tactical breakdown after that embarrassing loss. Chicago built a fort around their net and Peter Mrazek. The Penguins, as they have been unable to do all season, were unable to get inside that. They lack the physicality, they lack the size. Even some of the, they kind of lack that speed to transition faster and harder against teams that want to do that. As a result, they were blasting away, they were shooting. But they weren't getting good tips. They were getting desperation tips, or just, tips that went wide because they had a low chance of success. Sure, the Penguins had chances on Tuesday. And yeah, Peter Mrazek probably played the game of his season. But the Penguins could have done so much more to break him. In fact, that's one of the questions. Let me get right to the Q&A here from PPG Paints Arena. Where is it? I'll start with that question. Here we go. I think this was from Jim. Why do the Penguins make so many mediocre goalies look like Patrick Roy? And the answer is simple. Just like they let the Ottawa Senators, what was his name? I forget the Senators' ECHL goalie. I forget his name. Doesn't really matter, does it? They stayed to the outside because they couldn't get inside the dots. They couldn't get inside and bust up and take position on the Ottawa Senators. They were confined to the yellow, so to speak. See the yellow rim around the boards there? They were confined to the yellow. And that really is the answer. The goalies are seeing every shot. And even an ECHL goalie, if he sees a shot from 30 feet, he's going to stop it. Well, most of them, anyway. So let's get to a couple real pointed questions here in the Q&A tonight. Derek, will Sid ask for a trade? I don't think so. However, and I wrote this in my scathing post-game column, each of the 3 core members must be asked the pertinent question. Do you have the energy and the heart to start over? Because this roster needs to be nuked, blown up all around them. No one should be safe. And the core has to ask themselves, they must ask, be asked by the organization, whomever the GM is, whoever the president, whoever the owner is, do you really have the heart to go through this? And if not, then a trade must occur. That's just simple. That's to me simple math. And tonight probably isn't the night to ask them that question. And even in a few days is not the day to ask that question. But in a couple weeks, when the emotions die down, when the dust settles and the future becomes clear, ask that question of each of them, of Sid, of Malkin, of Letang. Do you have the heart to start over? Because the Penguins have to start over all around them. That would not be a rebuild. That would be a retool. And it would be difficult because the Penguins are cap-strapped by Jeff Carter, by Mikael Granlund, by Jan Ruda, by Jeff Petrie, by, those are probably the big Those are the big ones, right? So those would be very difficult contracts to get any value back. And you're just hoping to clear some salary there without eating too much and without wasting assets to move them on. But the Penguins must. Oh, Brian Rust and Jake Gensel should not be safe. In fact, somebody asked, where is it? JW asked me, trade Gensel? Question mark. It would not be off the table for me. Straight up, JW. It would not be off the table for me. It sounds crazy. Gensel's pushing 30 now. He is not going to age well. He's already not the biggest, strongest, fastest guy. And as age begins to creep up on him, smarts can only take you so far. And he's going to want a big new contract based on all of these goals he's scored the last couple or a few years. I don't know if the Penguins are the team to give him that contract. Thus, I don't know what the market would be for him. Sometimes we're surprised to find out other teams kind of see the same thing or, see the same future anyway. But that's, so Rust and Gensel should not be immune from questions either. David, what do you see off-season change-wise? Oh, David, that is a question on which I'm going to write probably a couple 100,000 words. I mean, no joke. I write more words per month than are in the Bible, by the way. That's why you should always subscribe to PHN Plus, because you get more content from me than anybody else. And I'm quite proud of that fact. I might not be the best hockey writer on the planet, but I'll be no one's going to outwork me. That is for sure. There's just a myriad of changes, and you can't single one change out because everything affects everything else. And so I think the organization needs a plan. I'm going to assume that Ron Hextall knows what his players are worth and begin to formulate a plan into next season. If he's the GM, I think he has to answer some serious, severe, intense questions as well. Because listen, a lot of you asked about Hextall. Will Hextall be back? I don't know. In fact, let's see here. RJ asked, are there GMs that specialize in rebuilds? Well, RJ, you're going to hate this answer. Guess what? Ron Hextall was seen as a GM who specialized in that. He was adept in Los Angeles as the assistant general manager. Their farm system, that 70s line, and the crop of young players that came up that enabled LA to win the 2012 and 14 Stanley Cup. So I have the years. I have the years right. The young players that grew up right then are largely credited to Ron Hextall. Just as when Hextall left the Flyers with Carter Hart and Morgan Frost and Jay O'Brien and Joel Farabee and who am I missing? A gaggle of young players was seen as this great crop coming. And the Penguins were thought to have, gotten a coup to get Hextall. Philadelphia's loss was their gain because Hextall built this great farm system. Now, the Flyers youngsters have not done so well. We'll see, the Penguins farm team and prospects are barren. Owen Pickering is the hope. I don't know if there's really Sam Poulin did not jump off the page at me this year. Training camp, his 3 games, he didn't leap off the page at me as a guy who is guaranteed an NHL spot at any point in his career. 2019 third-round pick Nathan Legare is well behind his peers. I think he scored his 8th goal of the season the other night for Wilkes-Barre. And in part of that is because there are no centers in Wilkes-Barre, at least of note. So, are there GMs who specialize in a rebuild? Well, the Penguins actually have one who was noted for that. Let's see here. Steve asked, better chance for Penguins goalie, Gibson or Jari? I think Jari did himself huge damage. His future prospects in Pittsburgh, huge damage on Tuesday. That third goal might have been the end of his Penguins career. No joke. You just can't allow that in that game, in that situation. That might have been the death knell in his Penguins career, because he's been injured for the playoffs. He was ineffective in the playoffs. I don't know what else to tell you. That you can't judge a player on one play. But for a goalie, things crystallize over big moments. And Jari got outplayed by Peter Mrazek on Tuesday. So I don't know about John Gibson. Listen, if Anaheim wins Connor Bedard, they're sure as hell not giving up John Gibson. That would be foolish, because now your rebuild just gets put on steroids, and you need a goalie. So now they'd be looking in 2 years to make the playoffs if they get Connor Bedard. So there's a lot to go this summer, and I don't know, but I will put out one name. If it's not Tristan Jarry, watch for Thatcher Demko out of Vancouver. Just a gut feeling. Just a real gut feeling there. Okay. Let's see here. Maurice says the Penguins are 1 for 5 on the power play. That's why Sullivan needs to be fired, because he's allowing the power play to be stagnant. And listen, Todd Reardon runs the power play. And yes, Mike Sullivan allowed the inmates to run the asylum with the man advantage. He said it clearly, at least once this season. I mean, I didn't take too many days off. Well, I never take a full day off, but I didn't miss too many Mike Sullivan availabilities this season, maybe a handful. And the quote that jumps out at me is, you don't have to coach these guys. You don't want to coach these guys too much. Anyway, you don't want to overcoach them, is what Sullivan said about his top power play unit. Now look, Evgeny Malkin does score a big goal in the third period. Having said that, on, let's say, 3 or 4 of the opportunities, the Penguins' top power play unit skated around the outside. Like Eminem. Round the outside, round the outside, round the outside. I know Evgeny Malkin snapped back at me last week and said, what, do you think we're not trying to shoot? This was Chicago. This was the Chicago Blackhawks' 24th ranked PK. Let's not make it out to be the 76 Montreal Canadiens, okay? Serious problems on the power play needed to be changed. And yes, Sullivan deserves some criticism for allowing it to go this far, 81 games into the season, this stagnant, this sloppy, this ineffective. However, you don't fire the coach over that. And I think Sullivan, by the way, is smart enough this offseason. He's going to sit down and he's going to take that chain. And he's going to stretch it out hard and see where the weak links are. I would be shocked if the power play is the same next season. Whether that's coach, whether that's players, whatever it might be, I'd be shocked if the power play won. Let's see here. Jim asks, and this is an interesting question, because I almost discarded it, then I read the entire thing. Good question, Jim. Should the Penguins buy out Jeff Carter, even with no cap benefit? That second part is the important part. I appreciate that you understand there is no cap benefit to waiving him or sending him to the minors, because he counts for full boat next year. And that's one of the things Ron Hextall has to answer for, by the way. It's a real possibility, Jim. You know, they need that spot. And I think Mike Sullivan will have a real and genuine and hard conversation with Jeff Carter on locker cleanout day. I don't know if you know what goes on locker cleanout day, but literally you go meet with the coach and he tells you all the things that he told you all season. Maybe that, in piecemeal, but he puts it all in one big package. You did this that we liked. You didn't do this. You didn't do this. This summer, we want you to work on this. You have to get better at this. Or sometimes it's, thanks, but you won't be coming back next season. That happens in those locker cleanout days, or locker cleanout meetings. Exit meetings is what they are or used to be called. I could see in an exit meeting Mike Sullivan saying, Jeff, you were great on face-offs, but it's time. And giving him that tap. Because yes, the roster spot, even if you can't get cap space, that roster spot next season, a fourth line spot is a great place to integrate somebody young, some youth, some jam, some intensity, some physicality, some energy. All of those things the Penguins have been missing all season. And the fourth line spot is a great place to put it. Let's see here. I think I've gotten just about everything here. And it is 20 minutes. It's after midnight here at PPG Paints Arena. It's amazing they let me stay this long. There was an organization, Rangers, that security came running after me an hour after the game. Not a fan of the Rangers sometimes. They have some strict rules that aren't necessarily enumerated. To hell with them. I guess it won't come into play this year. Well, I guess we have to watch the Islanders and Montreal Canadiens Wednesday night, see if the Penguins get another chance to punch their ticket. They wasted a big one. They wasted it. They tossed it away by not getting inside the dots on Tuesday. They lost to a terrible team. And as I tweeted out, and it was 300-400 responses and going. If the Penguins can't beat the Chicago Blackhawks, they don't deserve to make the playoffs. And that is just, that's true. All right. I am Dan Kingerski, probably for the final time this season from PPG Paints Arena. Like, subscribe. Thank you. Farewell. Amen.